Hey guys, I'm back with a little bit of an update video. Apologize, we've been kind of busy here lately. I was just down here in the shop looking at this new, it's a Pontiac Victor, but it's set up for fuel injection. It's got some pretty cool bosses set up for the injectors, and this intake actually goes with that other job I mentioned in a different video. I'm working on these Pontiac Edelbrock Performer aluminum heads, because that customer has actually gone, I think he has a fast fuel injection setup that's going on a 461 Pontiac Stroker, all forged bottom end. That's going to be running some bitch. But something I wanted to mention to you guys, a problem that we had run into when we ordered the cam locking plate for the 4.3 turbo build. And yes, it has the bag back on it. I apologize. But the cam locking plate, the little holes in the end of the locking plate don't match up between a small block Chevy and a 4.3. For some reason, those three bolts that go in to the end of the cam didn't match up with the stupid cam locking plate we had. So we wanted to let everybody know that we were still able to use that same cam bolt locking plate just by taking a little grinder and elongating those holes a little bit. I don't know for sure. I'm almost positive we tried to line them up on a big block Chevy cam and a small block Chevy hydraulic roller. And for some reason, that bolt pattern was slightly different. I don't know. I don't know if it was misstamped or what the problem was. But just in case you guys run into that issue on your own build, just be aware, all you got to do is just elongate those holes just a little bit, and you can still use that plate, especially if you don't have easy access to another one. That's really all I was wanting to point out. We did finally get a grade 8 bolt for the crank, because somehow this 4.3 crank uses a big block Chevy crank bolt. I'm not sure why it differs so greatly from that 96 block, but the crank in this 4.3 used a big block Chevy crankshaft bolt. So anyway, got that done. The purpose of the video today was just to give you guys a little update on the cylinder head porting, because it is a messy ass job, and to be honest with you, I really like aluminum heads way better than cast iron, because the work is slower, and it just, I don't know, it just takes a lot of effort on my part to work on them, because it is so much messier and slower. And with cast iron, you have to wear some kind of a dust mask, because it literally will just kill you over time breathing all that iron dust, whereas aluminum, you can do probably 80% of your cutting and porting on aluminum heads and not ever get anything in your nose, you know. Now maybe if you were hitting them with sanding rolls, you might throw up some aluminum dust on that, but for the most part, aluminum heads are far superior for doing head porting. And you know, you get a lot of little metal shavings here and there, but it isn't near as messy as this gosh darn cast iron. But I wanted to show you some of the modifications I was doing. You can see where I'm doing some work in the actual combustion chambers, because these Vortec heads from the factory, they have really big square like bosses, like little square lugs right above the spark plug hole, and I like to just smooth those out See if I can give you a little bit better angle. I like to just try to smooth that area out. I don't like that huge square lug up there, so I get that done. I do some unshrouding between the side of the valve. Grab my pointer here. Sorry about that. Anyway, I try to unshroud through here. Your exhaust side seems to already have quite a bit of room. So basically I just take off the casting flash, try to take out that machinist ridge that's always right around the valve, edge of the valve, where they do their transition from the actual valve seat into the chamber. I try to work those, get that all removed, make this all as smooth and I call it ergonomically, or however you want to put it. Try to get that all nice and smooth. I will go a little finer on this. This has just been basically burr cut, and I hit it with some old wore out sanding rolls because I'm actually out of my new sanding rolls. I'm going to have to order some. A word of caution I will give people. Harbor Freight has sanding rolls. Some people call them sandy tootsie. I don't know why, but they call them tootsie rolls, or they're basically just rolled up sandpaper that you can put on a mandrel and use it for polishing and sanding metal. Those are very low quality that they sell at Harbor Freight. They say on the box you're supposed to get half of them are 80 grit and half of them are 120 grit. Even their 80 grit rolls are not true 80 grit. And just almost every roll they have, as soon as you use it, it turns into a super fine, doesn't do anything but polish the metal sanding roll. So I mean, you can use those if you're going to polish, but for finished intake ports and runners that require the 60 to 80 grit finish, I highly suggest you buy a much better name brand. Standard Abrasive makes a good quality sanding roll. Check with your local like Fastenal or possibly maybe Granger, welding supply stores. See who can get you the best price on a set of quality name brand sanding rolls, because you'll literally waste time and money and not have the right finish on your intake ports using those Harbor Freight sanding rolls. So anyway, I was just going to show you a little bit of the work I was doing with just, and you can see this head's not near as far along because you can look around these seats, valves, where I haven't worked this head yet. I've done a lot of cutting on that stupid square boss. And if you can see, you see the shadow there, you can see where I make a nice swooping transition coming around, coming out of the port, unshroud the valve, come around and swoop over the spark plug hole. But that just gives you an idea of the modification I do to that stupid transfer lug, is what I call it, because it has absolutely no purpose in the world. But you can see right here one of my, I don't write, I'll write on there at some point, but part of your cylinder head porting, they call it secrets, is your bowl cut underneath your seat is super important to your head flow and the capabilities. It'll affect your velocities, your maximum head flow, low speed lift flow. I mean, basically what I call the bowl or the throat cut underneath your seat, that can make or break a whole port job. And I highly encourage you guys to go online, do a little bit of research. Joe Mondello has a great teaching philosophy for cylinder head porting and how to properly set up the math and the different sizes for your valves. I will tell you, these are going to flow, I would say, easily 250 CFM. probably is going to be pushing 250 to 260. I'm not sure yet, and I have mentioned to Richard about having them flowed. If I can get a true 250 plus CFM out of this 194 valve, it's going to be a pretty impressive deal. But man, it's looking like I'm probably going to get there. I'm going to do a little more work on that valve guide boss because it's just too fat for my liking. You know, the tail end of it can be definitely thin some more. There's some more work more area I can gain there. I don't have, let me see over here. On this port here, we've done our, it's not 100%. See if I can show you. It's not 100% to size yet, because this is what I use to, basically what we do is we do the math. We create this disc to the size that we want, and it's going to, I'll be honest, it's a percentage of your valve size, and we grind those specific for each valve and each head. So what we'll do is we will literally make that thing exactly the right diameter for the bowl cut that we want for each cylinder head that we work on. Here's one that we mocked up earlier that ended up being a little bit too small for the exhaust side, because I was trying to go a little bit conservative on the throat cut on my exhaust side, because I mean, let's just be brutally honest, I had always followed the concept that you don't go over 85% when you do your exhaust bowl cut. But I reread and kind of revisited some of Joe Mondello's teachings, and he's almost acting like he'll do the same percentage on both valves. But I could have swore years ago when I first started porting, because I've always used 85 to 86% of the valve size as my guideline for the exhaust bowl cut. I just don't. I'm afraid, here's my fear. Your exhaust seat endures a lot more heat, a lot higher temperatures, and a lot of heat. Now you're throwing on a turbo that's going to be circulating some pretty hot heat at times. How thin do you want your seat to get? I mean, when you think about it, your seat is only so thick. It's kind of hard to see it, but your valve seat's only so thick. And if you start going retardedly thin, to me that just opens up the opportunity for something bad to happen, or that stupid seat to fall out or something. I don't know. But I'm going to do some more research on these turbo builds, because like I said, I've done a lot of naturally aspirated head porting, nitrous, stuff like that, with, you know, tremendous results in some applications. But this is my first turbo or boosted build. So the goal here is to optimize our throat size without compromising our low lift, mid lift, you know, any of that, or to cause an issue with making the seat and the head too thin. I'm pretty comfortable with the numbers we have on the intake side, because I've personally used them on many sets of heads, and I know it's effective, and I know we don't have any problems with the seat. Right now I'm leaning towards probably 85, not more than 86.5% on my exhaust throat, unless somebody comes up with a better idea or can validate to me that it's okay to run up to, gosh dang, I would not go over 88%, but that's just because of my past experiences and what's worked for me in the past. But anyway, so you get the idea about how these heads are going to be modified and how important the bowl cut and the throat. Literally, Joe Mondello says you can take a stock head, let's say these stock Vortecs, and all the information I found says that a stock Vortec with a 194 valve from the factory flows approximately 227 CFM at around 500 to 550. I think it's 500 or 550 lift. So I'm like, okay, if this thing could flow anywhere near 227, then we can make some real gains here, because according to Joe Mondello, just doing the proper percentage bowl cut from the bottom of your seat into your port, and with the proper blending, that alone will gain between 10 to 15 CFM all by itself. He actually says that this is one of the things he uses when he does special head work for racing classes that are limited to no head porting, is that he just does work between the valve seat and the opening of the throat of the port. Like when he does the bowl cut below the seat, he hits it up, he goes up 89-90%. He said he does not like to go over 90. He uses 89% as his pretty much go-to percentage on the intake side, unless it's a 210 or bigger race valve. Sometimes he'll go up to 91%, but you're going to have a lot bigger, thicker seat in your head for those larger valve sizes, so a larger bowl cut's probably going to be fine. But he said only on the most largest valve, high-end race engines, would he ever go above 89% on the intake throat. If you read into some of his articles, it actually gives you details about if you make the transition from the seat too big for the given valve size, it's really detrimental to velocity, and overall flow until you get it only in the upper RPMs. So trying to build a real balanced head that'll actually do something good at all lifts, so that it has a good drive around feel, throttle feel, and torque, and then just screams like a banshee when you open up that throttle and get the turbos pumping that air like they're going, or that turbo pumping the air. So anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an update of where I was at, because I'm painfully slow. I've been even more slow on this project because I've been busy with my family, had a few health issues, and I truly hate working iron heads, but they're coming along. I will fully work and polish the chambers, get rid of all the machinist ridge. I will do my bowl cuts to the percentages that we decide are the best for this build. I will blend my back and side walls. I will, what they call, industry term, waterfall, which is basically build the transition, or like the short turn. You want to widen it more than you try to shorten it. You don't want to just cut it out and make it a straight shot like you think you would. You basically just make a nice smooth transition from the bottom of that curtain below the valve seat into your port, and then widen it as far as you can. So anyway, if you've never ported heads, that's probably, like me speaking Chinese to you. So I just wanted to give you guys a little update of where I was at, trying to get my math right, because I definitely want these heads to produce the power that we're looking for. And from what I'm looking at so far, I put that flashlight in that one port just so you guys could kind of see some of the work I've done so far. There's the intake port. There's some of the work I've done on that exhaust guide. It has not been cut. The bowl cut's not been done yet. I haven't done any work at all on the exhaust ports as far as cleaning them up or gasket matching or none of that junk. Because everybody should know, if you're going to port cylinder heads, on the exhaust port opening, you don't go down, you only go up. That's what facilitated these D-port exhaust on the exhaust openings, you heard of the D-port heads. It's because the cylinder head porters had found out the air coming out of the cylinder is smoking hot, and it wants to follow the roof of the port and get the heck out of there as fast as it can, because it's actually moving at supersonic speed at the roof of the port. So if you've ever looked into doing any port work, you'll see you only work this little bit on the sides and the roof, and you work on your bowl cut transition, making your valve guide boss as small and as less intrusive as you can. And you can really wake up a set of small block Chevy heads, even with a 1.5 valve size. I would expect these are going to flow 180 plus CFM on the exhaust side. I'd like to get 190 out of them, but since we're pretty much staying with the stock size exit to match those side tie manifolds, we're probably going to be stuck around the 180, 185 CFM range, but that's still just damn near 50 CFM increase over factory. So keep watching, guys. I've got my 80 grit so I can redo my flapper wheels or build my flapper setup for the final, because I'll only use the flapper setup when I get done with everything on the ports on the intake side, and I'll finish it to that 80 grit. Exhaust side, I'll probably polish it as fine as I can, probably down to a Scotch-Brite, because that's just how I do my heads. I like to have it as smooth and less carbon. The smoother you get it, the less carbon can build up in there, or less carbon that will build up in there to restrict it. So anyway, this is where I'm at on my head porting. I apologize, I'm slower than Christmas. That only comes every 2 years, but I get her done, and I try to do a pretty bang-up job, do the best I can. But I wanted to mention these crazy Pontiac heads. They have that D-port. We were just talking about the D-port. Don't show up very good in this video. But see how they keep the floor flat and kind of cathedral or dome the top, because that's a really good shape for exhaust flow. But anyway, just wanted to give you guys a quick update on where we were at, because it's been a few days since I posted a video, but we are still working on this high horsepower V6 build. You can see why I'd mentioned in a previous video, junk valves. Put junk valves in there, protect your seats, and go to town. That's how you get the work done without hurting anything. So anyway, you guys keep watching. It's coming around. It's probably not as fast as we originally wanted. I know definitely not as fast as Richard, but wants it to be. But we'll get her done, and it's going to be done right. So keep watching. We'll have some more videos soon.